Well, thank you so much for joining us. This session is called the Possibility Report from Prison to College Degrees in California by Danny Murillo. And so for those of you who were in our last session, Danny Murillo has a very, very extensive history with systems impacted and having gone through particular barriers in life where he has created a great background of success for himself. He is currently at UC Long Beach, and he's working on his social and cultural analysis of education degree. Danny's future goal is to teach at a community college courses in cultural studies. And so I'm not gonna talk too much about Danny. I know that a lot of us did hear his story. He is definitely an inspiration to all of us. And so Danny, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share the latest publication in the campaign for college opportunity, the Possibility Report from Prison to College Degrees in California. Can we get the PowerPoint up? The Possibility Report is made possible with the generous support from the Art for Justice Fund and the Mickelson 20mm Foundation. This report aims to highlight the current state of educational barriers for current and formerly incarcerated Californians, making higher education accessible for all Californians, means illuminating and strengthening pathways to degrees for the nearly 650,000 Californians who are incarcerated on parole or probation. This morning, I will briefly provide an overview of the Possibility Report. After, I will share demographics on California state prison and parole population, as well as demographics of incarcerated students, current program offerings inside prisons and jails and campus, and then I'll dive into the focus group findings, and I will conclude with the set of policy recommendations. The remainder of our time will be allocated to a Q&A. I don't see the PowerPoint slide. There you go. And if we can go, yeah. Perfect. Thank you. That's the cover, the front cover of the report. It's 3 students from Fresno State's Project Rebound. Anyways, next slide, please. So the Possibility Report includes descriptive demographics on California's incarcerated and parole populations, as well as demographics on incarcerated and paroled students. The report includes a landscape analysis of current program offerings of public colleges and universities serving incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students, followed by what I believe to be the most critical part of this report, the voices of formerly incarcerated students describing the barriers.
Danny, you went mute.
Can we go back to the previous slide? There, and we'll keep it there. I'll let you know when to change the slide. The report includes a set of policy recommendations for campuses in California to dismantle post-incarceration barriers and create more opportunities for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students. The report concludes with an appendix containing a policy analysis of state and federal legislation making college accessible for currently and formerly incarcerated students. Next slide, please. Due to limited disaggregated data by race, ethnicity, gender, and age for California's federal prison and county jail population, this report focuses primarily on California state prisons, which represent approximately half of the total incarcerated population in the state. Disaggregated data by race, ethnicity, gender, and age is readily available via the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation website. Last year, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation reported a state prison population of 127,709 incarcerated people. The data doesn't reveal anything new, but it's a reminder that Black and Latinx are disproportionately incarcerated, as the graphic indicates. In the same report published by CDCR, the parole population was estimated at 48,651 people. A majority of individuals on parole from state prison are Black and Latinx, with nearly half between the ages of 25 to 39. Over 65% of people who are on state parole are Black and Latinx, with nearly half between the ages of 25 to 39. The opportunity to access and complete some form of college degree or credential will increase their chances of overcoming post-incarceration barriers and open the doors to new possibilities of career, economic mobility, housing, healthcare, civic engagement, and the uplifting of entire families and communities. The takeaway from this slide is the racial injustice that exists in California with the disproportionate rate of incarceration of Black and Latinx males. Next slide, please. In 2020, less than 9% of the state prison population was enrolled in a post-secondary education face-to-face or correspondence program. And less than 1% of the state prison population earned a college degree. According to the Office of Correctional Education, at the end of the spring 2020 semester, 11,472 incarcerated students in CDCR were enrolled in a face-to-face or correspondence program, and 1,214 incarcerated students received a college degree. From July 2018 to June 2020, there were 8,236 people released from state prison who were enrolled in a college course while incarcerated. At the same time, 595 people earned a college degree before their release date. Although California's public colleges and universities do not collect data on the number of formerly incarcerated students they serve, it is estimated that in 2019, over 1,000 formerly incarcerated students were enrolled in all three segments of California's public higher education system. Considering that nearly 9,000 people were released from state prison between July 2018 to June 2020, with some college experience or a college degree, it begs the following question. What happened to those students who did not continue with their college education after being released from prison? There is tremendous opportunity for public colleges and universities in California to expand and provide post-quality education, post-secondary education and support services to incarcerated students and create a pathway from prison to college campuses. It is both an economic and racial justice imperative to promote college access and degree attainment while incarcerated. Next slide, please. Last summer, the Campaign for College Opportunity distributed a survey to all 148 public colleges and universities in the state, inquiring about their educational offerings for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students. We received a total of 103 survey responses. After analyzing the surveys, I found that colleges and universities are providing incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students a broad range of academic and student support services. For incarcerated students, the support includes registration support, academic advising, transcript analysis, pre-release support, letters of support to the Board of Parole Hearings, and referrals or resource lists for housing, legal, and reentry service providers. Support services for formerly incarcerated students include registration and financial aid support, tutoring support, work studies employment, mental health services, and transfer services, to name a few. Additionally, there are leadership development programs for formerly incarcerated students. For instance, Berkeley Underground Scholars Ambassadors Program trains over a dozen ambassadors at community colleges throughout the state to outreach to formerly incarcerated people in their community and on campus. Each ambassador serves as a touch point at their community college and connects formerly incarcerated students to a range of campus and community resources. Next slide, please. Last summer, the Campaign for College Opportunity hosted 3 virtual focus groups with 29 students representing a cross-section of California community colleges, Cal State universities, and University of California campuses. The focus group participants were diverse in terms of gender and race, ethnicity, and age, and they had an array of experiences accessing and succeeding in higher education. The focus groups included individuals who were enrolled in a college program while incarcerated and continued their education upon release, as well as participants who were enrolled only after the release from jail or prison. Their academic interests varied from certificate degrees, associates in arts and science, associate degree for transfer, bachelor's, master's, PhDs, and law degrees. Next slide, please. Although the focus group participants had a diverse set of life experiences, 5 common themes emerged from all 3 focus groups, and they include parole and probation, housing, employment, targeted student support, and career transition. Next slide, please. According to the findings from the focus group, from all 3 focus groups, the parole and probation systems in California do not prioritize higher education and often present barriers that keep formerly incarcerated students from achieving their educational goals. There is no centralized policy guidance on managing and supporting formerly incarcerated students. On parole and probation, right? For the most part, participants in the focus groups describe probation and parole officers as unsupportive of their educational aspirations and goals. Next slide. Requirements to access housing or parole requirements leave students with unstable living situation, creating an environment unconducive to going or staying in college. Many students shared that transitional housing conditions require that an individual cannot be enrolled full-time or they cannot apply for affordable housing because they had INCO monitors and or felony convictions. Many of our focus group participants shared that they had lived in vehicles during their educational journey and were often homeless. Next slide, please. Formerly incarcerated students straddled 2 employment problems: finding work with a conviction history and balancing the need to work while attending school. The need to work poses severe issues for formerly incarcerated students. Employment is key to maintaining stable housing, meeting basic needs, caring for family, and more than likely a condition for probation, parole, or housing. The students we spoke with elevated the difficulties with being a parent, finding stable work, and finding enough work to meet financial obligations, all while being a college or university student. Next slide, please. Support services are crucial to college retention, but are inconsistent across campuses, and in some instances, the responsibility to create a space for formerly incarcerated students falls on the students themselves. There are so many steps a student must take before they step foot on campus. That is why many of our focus group participants suggest that higher education support begins before release while incarcerated. Students urge that support take the form of advising and help with transcripts, registration, financial aid, housing, mental health services, and legal support. Next slide, please. Campus advisors lack the knowledge and understanding to properly advise students with criminal records on career opportunities. Due to their arrest and conviction history, formerly incarcerated students need expert and often legal guidance as they map out their career aspirations. Even after receiving their degree, formerly incarcerated students are not guaranteed employment, especially if their chosen career requires a licensure, certification, or clearance. Existing licensing barriers impact formerly incarcerated students' choices in academic majors and career fields, and too often academic and career advisors are unaware of those barriers. Next slide, please. Recommendations in the possibility report address these challenges and encourage immediate action from college campuses, the state and the federal government to increase college opportunity for these students. Recommendations include establishing guidelines that promote higher education within the parole and probation system and support formerly incarcerated students in pursuing higher education, allowing enrollment in higher education for transitional and affordable housing, communicate on campus housing requirements, and provide designated spaces for formerly incarcerated students, prioritizing formerly incarcerated students for federal work-study opportunities, and significantly expand federal work-study opportunities. Starting the college going process while students are still incarcerated, and support a prison to college transition effort. Designate professional student support service staff as a liaison for formerly incarcerated students, ensuring academic and career counselors have appropriate training to support formerly incarcerated students with their major selection and career aspirations. And that also should include incarcerated students as well. Incarcerated students are also making career decisions while incarcerated before they come home, right? So they should also, academic counselors should also be prepared to serve them as well. Additional recommendations include the collection of data by race, ethnicity, age, and gender on enrollment, retention, completion, and success rates of incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals, establishing a statewide coordinating body for higher education that would assume responsibility for coordinating with federal, state, county, adult, and youth carceral systems, access to higher education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals. Lastly, continue to prioritize providing college opportunity to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people through the California Community College Student Success Funding Formula and investment in Rising Scholars Networks, Project Rebound, and Underground Scholars. Next slide, please. In closing, I want to thank once again the focus group participants who were willing to be open and honest about their post-incarceration journey into a public college or university. As a state, we have a real opportunity to create change for generations of Californians caught up in the carceral system. For far too long, California has overinvested in prisons to solve our social issues, but has provided minimal resources or funding to community programs, to colleges and universities to offer an alternative to incarceration. It is time to change that. And I hope this report builds on the work that so many people have contributed to making college accessible to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Danny, for that presentation. We would like to now transition into questions, if there's any questions. Holly, can you take over on that, please?
Absolutely. It looks as of right now, we do not have any current questions. Is there anyone attending today that has any questions for Danny, please? You can feel free to leave it in the chat, or if you would like, you can go ahead and unmute to ask.
I just want to say thank you, Danny, for all your hard work. I love being a part of this, and I love what you're doing, man. Keep leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheech. Appreciate it, man. And respect all the work that you're doing out there in Santa Maria and at Allen Hancock College, man. And looking forward to you hopefully transitioning to UC Santa Barbara and taking part in the underground scholar work that's being done there.
Yes, sir. I'm on my way.
Danny, I do have a question for you. I'm just curious. I know that you in your last presentation earlier, you mentioned the years, going through hardship in life, and your family growing up, and making the transition from I call it in kind of like the teeter-tottering on the other side of the fence. How many, like what I'm trying to say is, like, at what point do you go back and think about, like, what was it that transitioned for you? What was that pivotal point in your life that made you change?
It's a combination of things, right? Definitely a combination of things, right? positive and negative experiences, but definitely seeds, throughout my life, right, have been planted by different people, right? And people that I looked up to, right? People who I wanted to be like, right? That were going to places like Pelican Bay Shoe, to Corcoran Shoe, right? From my neighborhood, right? We looked at those places. We looked at those places in my community as our Harvard and Yale, right? As institutions with prestige, right? For those that were involved in this life, right? Or in the past life, right? And so when they would talk to me and tell me like, dude, you're smart, bro. Like you're intelligent, you should do something else. Even though they were telling me that, it meant a lot. And I hold on to that. I never took their advice though, right? And followed through with it. But as I continued to live, I would remember those moments, right? Even I had so many moments in prison, right? But definitely, I was always negotiating. Like, I got to Pelican Bay and I told myself, how, if I were to get released right now, what am I willing to do? And I told myself, right, one thing I won't do, I'm not gonna gangbang no more. No more trying to kill people because of where they're from. If anything, I'm gonna work with them and let's make money. Right? That was the mindset. And then it got to a point where like, now, you know what? I don't even want to do that because I don't want to be here no more. And I don't want to do anything that's going to bring me back to this place, which was Pelican Bay Shoe. And so, and it got to a point where I would say, maybe 2 years before coming home, 3 years before coming home, really those letters with my brother, even though I was already changing, and saying like, all right, I'm going to do something different for myself. I think a very big motivation was definitely my mother's letters, right? And her reminding me like, yo, man, your little brother and your nephew are caught up in this cycle. And I don't want them to end up like you or end up like your brother. I have a brother who was murdered after being deported to TJ, right? First day, second or third day after being deported, he was murdered in TJ, right? And my mom carries that with her, right? And for her, she was always scared that either my little brother and my nephew would either get killed or end up doing life in prison. And for me, it was like, all right, well, what can I do? And the only thing that I could do is just set a different example, because I talking about it and telling them, do this, do that, do this, do that. They were like, bro, if you ain't doing it, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not showing me an example, and even when I showed them an example, they weren't really trying to grasp onto that, right? And it was really when I was able to create a whole different environment at UC Berkeley, right? I took them out of the hood, right? They weren't, our apartment wasn't getting raided no more, right? Because for probation violations, they weren't getting pulled over in the streets anymore, right? Once in a while, they would get harassed by campus police, right? Because, they're like, they were, they stuck out, but they were there just, just chilling, but like that environment, right? Really allowed me to create not just a lot of change for myself, but also for my brother and my nephew, right? And I think for me, I say again, it was like a combination of different things that made me change. But like if there was something like that was pivotal, then it had to be my little brother and my nephew, and not wanting them to get caught up in that system and that cycle, right? And seeing them where they're at now, like I know, I feel confident that we're gonna break those direct cycles that still exist in my family with incarceration.
Thank you for that, Danny. I really appreciate your entire message. I have always said that our life now, going forward, is pretty much like a carbon copy that we are leaving behind for others to model. So as mentors, as educators, I think that it's great that the work that you're doing now compared to what our lives were. And I'm pretty sure that you look at yourself in a different way now, now being in education and, making these connections and making these changes in other people's lives. So you are totally an inspiration. And I mean, it's amazing. It's truly amazing, the work that you have done, knowing the background, knowing where you have been. Going back to gladiator school. I mean, that tells it all. That's years of trauma, years of barriers. Now to see you as an accomplished, individual. So So praise to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so it looks like we do have a couple questions in the chat. Rosa Amel states, thank you, Danny. I teach biology. How are we encouraging students to join STEM majors? Can I get connected with these efforts?
The one effort that I do know around STEM is a program at Sandy. It's a program facilitated by a graduate student in the EDD program at San Diego State University. Alberto Vasquez also works at UC San Diego. He runs a STEM program that goes into San Diego County Jail, and I believe also Donovan State Prison. And he's teaching biology through a cultural lens, right? So he's taught, like, some of the things that he told me that he's talking about is about corn, right? And you know, everything about corn, right? Including is significance to indigenous culture, right? So, you know, he's incorporating a cultural lens into biology or even into like engineering, right? Where he's talking to folks about like, yo, who here knows how to make a tattoo machine out of a Walkman, you know? And so like incorporating things that people already know how to do in there, but kind of from the lens of STEM, right? So he's that's the only program that I know of. It's not a credit-based program, but it's just trying to expose people, right? And at the same time, exposing to biology, but at the same time, expose them to higher education. And it's coming from someone that is also formerly incarcerated, because, you know, Alberto Vasquez is also formerly incarcerated from San Diego, from Southeast San Diego. So he's definitely bringing in a lot, not just experience as a scholar, but also that lived experience as well.
Thank you for that. I'm not quite sure if this one's a question. I think it's just a statement. We'll see. Dr. Dorian states, Danny, my name is Jennifer. I'm a facility coordinator for English tutoring. I've been blessed to hear you many times, and we at the community colleges and the past English programs stand with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals all the way, not just as students, but also as in becoming tutors in our program. This has been a challenge over the years with bad legislation and or acquainted rules, but yet we push forward. Thank you for all you do, because it helps us provide jobs, experiences, and opportunities that in the past would be blocked. So empowering to know we are all in this together.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate your message.
And it looks like those are the only questions / statements. Any further questions from any of your attendees?
Yeah. Can we just ask, if there are no questions, can we just say something?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I just want to tell you, thank you, Danny, man, for being an inspiration from day one, since we first met, when I first read that article about you, and seeing that we have so much in common, especially during time in solitary confinement. And yeah, you're one of the first people that I've seen come from that depth of the prison system to be like at UC Berkeley or some kind of college like that, man. And you let me know that it's possible for me to be the same way, man. And I thank you for all the help that you've given me, all the advice and everything. I mean, if it wasn't for you and your part in it, like there wouldn't be no student club on campus at City College. There wouldn't be no All of Us or None. You helped me from day one, and you helped me establish that and told me what to do step by step. And I just want to thank you for that, man. I wanted to do that in the intro, but I didn't get a chance to. So that's it. And Dr. Dorian, too, for your support. Thank you. I believe Danny is the one that connected us.
I'm so amazed and so happy to be here. Alex, you have done more than you've done everything for us here on this campus. And Danny, thank you for the role you played in that too. We are so grateful.
Thank you. Now, thank you, Alex. for allowing me to be someone that you can come to, right, for advice. I'm always here to support people, right? And I suck at reaching out to people and checking in with people, but like whenever people call me, I'm always willing to take that call, or at least follow up, right? And so, I was in a position to help people, right? And had the honor of meeting you and seeing you not just flourish as a scholar and as a student, man, but even the work that you're doing in your community, right? I follow you on social media and seeing how, for me, it means a lot, right? That you would go out of your way after, an incident that happened in the community with a street vendor, right? And you would bring the community together, right? When it could have led to something much more ugly, And so that right there says a lot about you and what your community means to you, right? That you want to end the violence, right? Same way that I want to end the violence in my community, right? And I see you and I applaud you, bro.
Thank you, Danny.
Okay, so we have another post in the chat from Tim Woods. Danny, thank you so very much for the inspiring keynote and this session. In your report, you mentioned legislative reform, in particular for the state and counties allowing enrollment in community college as an option for transitional and affordable housing. Could you share where we are in lobbying efforts or prospects for that change being made?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Right. As of right now, I think the only efforts that I know that are really being made is around the incarcerated student bill. Right. Considering that we're still kind of under COVID, a lot of COVID legislation, right, and there's going to still be a lot of focus when it comes to the governor's budget around issues regarding to COVID. We really wanted to focus on incarcerated students and safeguarding their rights to quality education. Right. But we do hope that in the future, try to create some kind of effort or campaign effort, legislative effort around requiring transitional housing services that are kind of that are connected to probation and parole departments that are getting funded through them to provide housing to people coming home from jail or prison, right? So what happens is there's the California Reentry Grant, right? The Reentry Grant is I believe it's under the control of the Board of Community and California Board of Community Supervision, I believe. It's BCSS, something like that, right? So they have this grant that's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a reentry grant that gets allocated to different county organizations that are doing work around reentry, right? Unfortunately, higher education is not connected to any of that because they're not considered reentry work. Right, but the work that we're doing, right, the work that formerly incarcerated students that are doing just as students, right, welcoming people onto campus, supporting them with their transition, signing up to community colleges. Cheech is doing this. At one point, he was doing it for free. He was meeting people in the parking lot, taking them to the admission, taking them to the counselors, taking them to the placement test, and not getting paid for it. But for me, this is re-entry work, right? And so because higher education is not part of the re-entry conversation, when people are pursuing education, they're not automatically qualified for the same resources as formerly incarcerated people who are in those programs from probation and parole and transitional housing that automatically qualify them for those programs, right? So if we can get some type of wording and legislation that says formerly incarcerated students are just the same as any formerly incarcerated person that's eligible for transitional housing, then that would make things much easier for folks to be able to really focus on their education, right? Because if you don't have stable housing, then it's going to be hard to be a student, right? But yet people are doing it. People are pursuing their education, living in their cars or just sleeping in a room, but yet having to leave for the rest of the day because that's the condition, right? Because maybe, they're not allowed to be there the whole time. They're like, "Ooh, I give you somewhere to live." And I see this a lot, right? With family and friends, like I give you somewhere to live, but throughout the day, you've got to be somewhere else. And so folks just have somewhere to sleep. And that's not that's not conducive to people's education, right? People need somewhere that's stable. People need somewhere that's going to be able to give them an opportunity to, where they have somewhere to cook their food, somewhere to shower, somewhere even to wash their clothes, right? Because all of these things, if you have to go to different places, it really takes away from you being what you should be, and that's a student.
Hey, thank you, Danny, for bringing that to light. I managed to finagle my way into the Reentry Steering Committee, and I sit on the board now. I don't know how it happened, but it did. I got in there, and because they are getting a lot of money, and now they're saying, "Hey, Chief, we're going to depend on you to do a lot of this work." I'm going like, "Well, yeah, but you guys have funding for it. Like, what's up with that?" I do a lot of this out of the out of my heart. I love what I do. I love helping my people. I love helping this population of formerly incarcerated. But there is a lot of funding coming out, and we're not seeing none of it. And I think it needs to come to light about situations like this. It's not about the money, but if the money's there, help us. There's like, I was homeless when I started college. Now where they're talking about getting a washer and dryer put in the PE room gyms over there, so people that are homeless can wash their clothes. So all these things need to come to light, and it needs to be addressed. So thank you, Danny, for leading the way and encouraging me to keep pushing, brother. Thank you.
For sure. But I think one thing I would say, Cheech, is that I know you do it from the heart, but you say that it's not about the money, but it is about the money, right? And you should be supported and you should be funded, right? Because you're doing work that someone else would be getting paid for, right? But when you're doing it for free, that's also taken away from your labor. This is labor that you're putting in, and you should be compensated for it.
Thank you, Danny, for that wonderful message. I don't see any other questions on there. I know we have quite a bit of time still left, about 30 minutes in this session. Are there any other questions or anything that Danny, you would like to share with the group? Any final messages?
I guess if there's no other questions, I would say that Eli, the chancellor, Eli Ortiz mentioned this, right, about the work that Fresno City College is doing, right, and that's something that has to be highlighted, right, because especially of where you're at, right, you're in the Central Valley, right, you're in Prison Alley, right, up and down the 99, right, you have all these different prisons, right, and there's a very large population of people from the Central Valley also that are incarcerated in these spaces, right, and when they come home, if they're not coming home to places like the big cities, like the Oakland and San Francisco and Los Angeles, right, where a lot of these re-entry services are much more readily available, right? People are coming home to practically no resources, right, and they have to figure out how to do it themselves, or a lot of times people talk about ending up in the fields, right? And so if education is an opportunity that's going to give them a chance to create a different life for themselves and for their families and for their communities, right? Then I think Fresno City College plays a very important role in that, right, in the Central Valley, and the work that you're doing. Thank you for leading that work, right, and for incorporating the leadership of formerly incarcerated people like Alex and Victoria, and the collaboration that's also being done with Project Rebound, so that folks can continue their education into their bachelor's and grad school, right? And now we're seeing people, that came through Fresno City College that went to Fresno State pursuing PhDs at the UCs, right? And so for me, when I see that, right, it's going to be changing not just people's lives and families, but also communities. And I think about the change that it's going to bring, when we think about generations down the road, right? The impact that it's going to have, right? I know we might not see it, the transformation, we're seeing transformation of laws and policies, But once we start seeing the transformation of like, you know, the long-term impact, right, of you know, breaking these cycles of incarceration in our family, you know, we know that we did our job. And even though I might not see that, the fact that I played a role in that and I planted my seed and I continue to water those seeds is what it's all about.
Thank you, Danny. We do have another question in the chat from Karen. Danny, thank you for sharing how your family and mother are impacted. How can we include family in our work to make higher education more accessible and equitable?
I think, you know, even just talking from my experience, right? Like, not many of us had any knowledge of what higher education was. My mom didn't know how to fill out an application for a college admission, let alone my dad. And then for me, one of the things that I realized is the importance of bringing my family members with me to campus, right? Same thing, like, you know, what I did with my little brother and my nephew. I think just exposure, right? Exposure to the campus, to the people there, and you know, both of them being able to create their own relationships with other formerly incarcerated students at Berkeley, really gave them a different perspective, right? So you know, sometimes, you know, especially for folks that are coming in from marginalized communities where college is not something that we even considered, just exposure, right? And not just exposure of like, here, let's walk through this campus, but like, yo, let's walk here and we're going to chill here and we're going to meet people and we're going to go get lunch with people. We're going to get dinner with people. You know, we're going to hang out with people. And that's what we did, right? And you know, seeing my brother now being friends with professors and scholars, right? It's, you know, it's for me, it's amazing, right? Because, you know, it's not something that I ever thought that he would do, right? But now, you know, he is where he is because the exposure that he got, right? And the exposure of, again, not just walking through this space, but, you know, being able to connect with people.
Thank you for that. It doesn't look like any more current questions in the chat at the moment. Any last questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Danny, I saw your keynote address earlier, very inspiring. And we met over the phone a few months back. I'm an undergraduate and underground scholar at UC Berkeley. And I began working with California Justice Leaders to support DJJ youth in their transition out of incarceration and into society. I was researching and doing some research for a youngster that I support, and his goals are to become in-home care specialist, and he's from the Fresno area. So I came upon this symposium as I was researching the Fresno City College. So I guess this is just a general question that you know, who can I get in touch with at Fresno City College to help support this youngster? He goes up to board in June, and I want to try to make his transition as seamless as possible into the academic sphere.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, Alex, meet Danny, meet Alex. That right there. Alex Vanda would probably be a good connection, right? And then there's a few other folks here, right? You know, Ray Ramirez, you know, Hugo, I'm sure he could probably support as well. I see Arnold Filipino here.
Yeah, well, whole team right here.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely in the right place, right? You're definitely in the right place to find some support for this youngster.
Yeah. If y'all could drop your emails in the chat, that'd be great.
Thank you for your work, bro. Appreciate it, man. It's highly recognized, man.
Thank you so much for that last comment. I will enter in my email in the chat room at the end. I will enter in some other links. I'm the Rising Scholars Counselor for Fresno City College, so I will enter in some good information to pass along. Any last questions? Okay, well, looks like there's no other questions. Please, everyone, if you guys can please fill out the survey. I'm gonna go ahead and submit that in the chat. I'll put in my email, my contact information. Please don't leave. We're gonna go into lunch from 12 to 1, and we will break into session number 2 from 1 to 2:15. I will also place the links in the chat just in case you may have misplaced them or just need them accessible to you. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, Danny. That was amazing. Like I said, you're an inspiration. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm also going to put my email at the end. If anybody wants to follow up with anything, feel free. But yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity. Unfortunately, it wasn't in person. So, I wasn't able to go meet up with Alex and go get some food. But hopefully next time. I definitely want to go fishing, Alex. I definitely want to go fishing.
All right. Next time for sure.
For sure, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.